December 5th, 1945. It was a day like any other at the Fort Lauderdale Naval Air Station, Florida. The sky was clear. The wind was light. Perfect flying weather. At 2 p.m., 5 U.S. Navy bomber planes lifted off. The sound of the engines roaring, the propellers spinning wildly. 14 men in their navy blue uniforms waved goodbye. They were embarking on what was supposed to be a routine training mission, a flight they had done hundreds of times before. Drop some practice bombs on a coral reef, fly a circuit, then head home. Simple as that. But no one knew that. Within the next 3 hours, all 5 planes would vanish without a trace. No explosion, no final distress signal, no wreckage, no bodies. 14 men vanished, as if they had never existed. This is just one of dozens of mysterious disappearances that have occurred in this region. A patch of the sea that fishermen and pilots call the Bermuda Triangle. Today, we will dive deep into 3 of the most chilling vanishings. 3 true stories. 3 mysteries that science still struggles to fully explain. And what's even more frightening, these incidents share a strange, undeniable common thread. But first, let me tell you about the fateful flight known as Flight 19. 5 TBM Avenger planes flew off the coast of Florida. Leading the formation was Lieutenant Charles Taylor, a hardened pilot with over 2,500 flight hours, a colossal number for that era. Taylor was no amateur. He had flown through countless storms. He had faced hundreds of emergency situations, and he always brought his plane home safely. The mission was routine. Fly east, drop the bombs on the Hen and Chickens Reef, head north to Grand Bahama Island, then turn west and return to Fort Lauderdale. A simple triangle route, 3 legs, about 2.5 hours total. The weather forecast, nearly perfect. Clear skies, visibility for miles. Everything went smoothly. The planes accurately hit their target. Step 1 was complete. They began flying north, and that's when everything began to unravel. At 3:45 p.m., 1 hour and 45 minutes after takeoff, the control tower at Fort Lauderdale started receiving strange radio signals. Taylor's voice came through, but this time, it was strained, trembling, anxious.
I don't see land.
We think.
We may be off course.
The tower staff was stunned. They immediately replied, "What is your position?" Silence. The control tower should still have been able to see Flight 19 from their vantage point. The sky was clear, good visibility, but when the ground crew scanned the horizon, they saw nothing. No planes. Several minutes passed in agonizing silence. Then Taylor spoke again. "We can't determine our position.
We don't see land.
We can't see land." His voice wasn't just anxious now. It was
Can't tell where we are anymore.
terrified.
Everything looks wrong.
The next 10 minutes, only static on the radio. The tower tried calling relentlessly. No response. Finally, another voice from Flight 19 cut in. Not Taylor. Another pilot in the squadron. "We can't find west," he said. The voice was panicked. "Everything is wrong. Everything looks strange. Even the ocean. Even the ocean looks strange." How could the ocean look strange? But hold that thought, because the most bizarre part hadn't happened yet. There was another pause. Then new information. Taylor had handed over command to another pilot. The reason? Unexplained, unclear. 20 more minutes of silence. Tension in the tower reached a breaking point. They knew something catastrophic had occurred, but they were helpless. Then finally, one last signal. "We can't tell where we are," the trembling voice cried out. "We can't make out anything. We think might be about 225 nautical miles northeast of the base. The pilot kept speaking.
No, it's wrong.
The words
the
were
water.
jumbled,
We can't.
utterly panicked. And then, the last sentence Fort Lauderdale ever heard.
It looks like we're flying into white
We're
water.
flying into white water.
We're completely
We're
lost.
completely lost. After that, only silence. The Fort Lauderdale Tower knew Flight 19 was in grave peril. They had to act immediately. 2 military rescue planes were dispatched. Mission: search for Flight 19 at the last reported location. 2 PBM Mariners took off. Large, powerful aircraft, specifically designed for open sea search and rescue.
Fort Lauderdale Tower, this is rescue
10 minutes
aircraft.
after takeoff,
We are airborne
the
and
rescue
proceeding
planes
to
checked in with the
search
tower. Everything normal. They were heading to the search area. And then, both rescue planes also lost contact. Did you catch that? Now it's not just 5 missing planes. It's 7 aircraft. In the span of 30 minutes, 7 military planes, 27 men, vanished completely in a small patch of the Atlantic off Florida. No huge blast, no massive fire, no final distress call, just absolute silence. 27 men, fathers, husbands, sons, vanished like smoke. But the biggest question remained: where did they go? In the ensuing days, the U.S. Navy and Coast Guard launched an immense search operation. They sent dozens of ships, dozens of planes, sweeping over 250,000 square miles of the Atlantic and the Gulf. Imagine that number. 250,000 square miles, the size of the entire state of Texas. They searched every patch of ocean, every sandbar, every small island. But they found nothing. Absolutely nothing. No plane debris, no floating seats, no life jackets. Not a single trace to prove the 7 aircraft ever existed. 27 lives, erased. Investigators began asking the crucial question: how could this happen to such experienced pilots? They started looking for clues, and they found something extraordinary. Years later, investigators determined that the Flight 19 pilots had experienced a major problem with their compasses. Compasses, a pilot's most fundamental navigational tool. It simply wasn't working correctly. It turns out, many other pilots and sailors have reported the same uncanny issue in the Bermuda Triangle. Their compasses acted strangely, pointing the wrong way, or spinning uncontrollably. A broken compass? That sounds simple. But the reason why the compasses malfunctioned here, that's the truly terrifying part. And we'll uncover that soon. But before we delve into the science, let's pause. Because behind these cold, hard statistics are real people. Imagine Lieutenant Taylor's wife, waiting for her husband to come home for dinner, the meal cooking in the oven, the table set. But the door never opened. The familiar footsteps never sounded. Or think about one of those 14 men on Flight 19. He had just celebrated the birth of his first child 3 weeks prior. He carried the baby's photo in his wallet. He told his comrades he couldn't wait to get back home. But he never saw his child again. This wasn't just a disappearance. This was 27 shattered families, 27 disrupted lives, 27 futures wiped clean. But Flight 19 wasn't the only case, nor was it the most chilling. Just 3 years later, in January 1948, something far more widespread occurred. A civilian airliner, with 31 ordinary passengers, vanished in the middle of the night. The plane's name, Star Tiger. This was one of the very first airliners capable of crossing the Atlantic, a technological marvel of its time. The captain was Brian McMillan, a decorated World War II veteran, thousands of hours logged. He had conquered countless Atlantic storms. The flight plan included a stop in Santa Maria, Azores, for refueling. Upon arrival, the weather reports were ominous. Massive storms were blanketing the Atlantic. Captain McMillan was a cautious man. He decided to wait it out in Santa Maria overnight. The next morning, January 29th, the winds were still strong, but the worst of the storms had passed. Captain McMillan decided to proceed. However, he made an unusual decision. He would fly at an altitude of only 2,000 feet, extremely low by commercial standards. The reason? To avoid the fierce upper-level jet stream winds. He felt safer closer to the water. This single decision would prove to be a crucial element in the puzzle. The Star Tiger flew across the Atlantic in the darkness. The sky was pitch black. The ocean beneath was a giant, dark mirror. At 3:15 a.m., Captain McMillan contacted the Bermuda Control Tower. A routine check, reporting his current position, confirming his estimated time of arrival. "We will arrive at 5 a.m., McMillan said.
We'll arrive
His voice was calm,
at 5 a.m.
professional. Less than 2 hours to go. Everyone aboard was relaxing, some sleeping, others reading. They were almost there. At 3:50 a.m., the Bermuda Control Tower tried calling the Star Tiger back. Another routine check. No response. They waited,
Star Tiger,
then tried
Bermuda
again.
call. Read me?
Still nothing. At
Star Tiger,
4:40
Bermuda
a.m.,
call. Read me?
close to the scheduled
Star
landing
Tiger,
time,
this is Bermuda.
the tower called repeatedly.
Tiger,
Only static. 5 a.m. came and went. The time the Star Tiger should have appeared on radar. The pilot should have been requesting landing vectors,
Bermuda control to aircraft.
but there was
Copy.
nothing.
Over.
The Bermuda Control Tower
Nothing.
declared a state
Still
of
nothing.
emergency. 31 people, sleeping, reading, dreaming of their vacation. And in a terrifying flash, they vanished. But this was no act of magic. This was something else entirely. The U.S. Air Force in Bermuda immediately launched a massive search. 26 military aircraft flew across the Atlantic. They logged a total of 882 hours of flight time, sweeping every square mile within hundreds of miles. They searched for 5 agonizing days, day and night, and they found nothing. Absolutely nothing. No plane debris, no floating luggage, no life jackets, no oil slick. The Star Tiger had vanished completely, as if it had never existed. 31 people, missing, without a single trace. 9 months later, December 1948, yet another DC-3 vanished. But this incident had details that defy logic and physics. The evening of December 27th, a DC-3 had just landed at San Juan Airport, Puerto Rico. It flew in from Miami and was preparing for a quick return flight. The captain was Bob Lindquist, another experienced pilot. While on the ground in San Juan, Lindquist reported a minor snag. The landing gear indicator light hadn't illuminated on landing. The ground crew checked. They found the plane's battery was weak. It needed recharging. But a full charge would take several hours. Captain Lindquist was clearly impatient. He had a different idea.
I'll recharge the battery using the
"I'll charge
aircraft
the battery
generator
with the
once
plane's
we're
generator,"
airborne.
he said. Once we're in the air. He seemed to be in a desperate hurry, wanting to get back to Miami immediately. The ground crew agreed. 28 new passengers boarded, ready for the flight back to Miami. But right before takeoff, another issue popped up. The radio transmitter was also malfunctioning, again due to the weak battery. Captain Lindquist could receive messages, but he couldn't send any. This was a major safety violation. A plane is never allowed to take off without two-way communication. The DC-3 was held at the end of the runway until the radio transmitter was finally recharged with a new battery. Finally, at 10:03 p.m., all systems checked out. Captain Lindquist and the DC-3 were cleared for takeoff. 31 people in total on board. Shortly after takeoff, the tower advised Lindquist to circle San Juan until two-way communication with Miami was firmly established. The DC-3 circled San Juan for 11 minutes. Finally, it connected successfully with Miami. Two-way communication was confirmed. The plane began flying northwest, towards Miami. At 11:23 p.m., a little over an hour into the flight, Captain Lindquist sent his routine radio signal to report his position. The plane was at 8,300 feet. Expected arrival in Miami at 4:03 a.m. This signal was received at Miami Airport, about 700 miles away. But here's the strange part. San Juan Airport, much closer to the plane, did not receive the signal. How could that happen? Later, Lindquist sent another signal, reporting they were preparing to descend for approach into Miami. The plane was 50 miles south of Miami. Expected landing in 20 minutes. This time, Miami did not receive the signal. But the New Orleans airport, 600 miles away, did. The radio signal bypassed Miami to be picked up by New Orleans. This violates every known law of radio transmission, unless there was an incredibly powerful, unseen force interfering. The New Orleans airport forwarded the message to Miami. Miami tried calling the DC-3 back immediately. No response. They tried again, and again, and again. Only silence. The DC-3 never arrived in Miami that night. 31 people were never seen again. The Coast Guard and U.S. Navy launched another massive search operation, sweeping hundreds of thousands of square miles. And once again, they found nothing. No wreckage. No clue. Now, let's pause and reflect on these three stories. Flight 19, Star Tiger, DC-3. 3 different incidents, 3 different years, 3 different aircraft, but they all share terrifying commonalities. Commonality 1, they all vanished in the same place. The Bermuda Triangle. Commonality 2, all pilots were highly experienced, no rookies. Commonality 3, the weather was good or manageable, no recorded extreme storms. Commonality 4, no wreckage, no debris, no bodies. Absolute erasure. Commonality 5, the key. Problems with navigation, compasses spinning wildly, radios acting strangely, as if an invisible hand was actively sabotaging them. So what is the terrifying answer? Scientists have investigated the Bermuda Triangle for decades, and they have 3 compelling theories. Theory 1, the magnetic ghost, basalt and magnetite. We talked about the compasses. Here's the science. In the Bermuda Triangle, the compass often points to true north, the geographic pole, rather than magnetic north, the magnetic pole. A difference of up to 1,200 miles in that hemisphere. Why the anomaly? Millions of years ago, a massive underwater volcano erupted. It created the island of Bermuda. Crucially, it left behind an enormous amount of basalt rock. Basalt is rich in iron and magnetite. Magnetite is the single most magnetic, naturally occurring substance on Earth. It is estimated that 500 billion tons of magnetite are concentrated in the rock around Bermuda. This immense, concentrated magnetism can cause compasses to deviate by as much as 10 degrees. This could be the ghost that led the experienced Flight 19 pilots hundreds of miles off course, convincing Taylor he was over the Florida Keys. Theory 2, the methane bomb, frothy water. Some scientists believe that massive reserves of frozen methane gas, called methane hydrates, exist beneath the seabed. Under certain seismic conditions, these reserves can rupture.
Under certain special conditions,
Methane gas then erupts
such
from the
as
seabed.
underwater earthquakes or temperature
The effect on the
changes.
water is catastrophic. Methane gas drastically reduces the water's density. The water becomes frothy, light. A ship caught in this frothy water instantly loses buoyancy and sinks very, very fast. This could explain how a massive vessel like the USS Cyclops, which disappeared in 1918, could vanish without a single distress call. For planes, methane gas is highly flammable. If a huge plume of gas reaches the altitude of an airplane engine, it could cause an instant mid-air explosion. Remember Captain McMillan flying the Star Tiger at only 2,000 feet? That incredibly low altitude made the plane the perfect target for a methane blowout. Theory 3. The unforgiving giant, hurricanes and extreme weather. But the most widely accepted and perhaps simplest theory? Storms. The Bermuda Triangle sits directly in the path of tropical storms and major hurricanes. These storms gather energy over thousands of miles of warm Atlantic water. By the time they reach the Caribbean and the Triangle, they are monsters. For a small plane or a 1940s airliner, flying into a sudden, unforecasted mega storm means instant destruction. The winds tear the plane to shreds. If the plane crashes in the middle of a major hurricane, debris sinks rapidly and the storm scatters any remaining wreckage over hundreds of miles. This explains the lack of evidence. But here's the haunting question. No single theory explains all of them. Magnetic anomaly doesn't explain the lack of wreckage. Methane? The probability is very low. Storms. Many incidents happen during clear weather. To this day, the debate rages on. Statistically, some experts argue the accident rate here is no higher than any other busy shipping lane. But the sheer number of documented, unexplained incidents, 50 to 100 planes in the last century, demands attention. Flight 19, we think they got lost because of a faulty compass. But why 7 planes at once? Why was the pilot so panicked about the ocean? Star Tiger? No wreckage. After 5 days of searching with 26 aircraft? DC-3? How do you explain that bizarre radio signal bouncing 600 miles to New Orleans, bypassing the local tower? Perhaps the answer is not one single thing. Perhaps the Bermuda Triangle is a unique combination. An unusual magnetic field makes the pilot get lost, leading to human error, like Lindquist's hurry or Taylor's poor judgment,
I'll recharge the battery.
which then meets an unforgiving sudden storm or a methane plume. The Gulf Stream's strong current then instantly sweeps the debris away. The mystery of the Bermuda Triangle is not completely solved. And perhaps that's what makes it so enduringly fascinating. Because deep down, we humans are drawn to the unknown, the boundaries of our knowledge. 27 people from Flight 19, 31 from the Star Tiger, 31 from the DC-3, nearly 90 lives, just in these 3 chilling incidents. Where did they go? What happened to them? We may never know for certain, but their stories will be remembered forever as a potent reminder of the ocean's unyielding power, of the limits of human technology, and of the mysteries that are still waiting to be solved. We've journeyed from the panicked radio calls of Flight 19 to the cold, hard science of methane and magnetism. If you enjoyed this deep dive into history, science, and the unexplained, make sure you subscribe to the channel right now. And don't forget to leave a comment below. What do you think happened to Flight 19? Which theory do you believe most? The magnetic field? Methane? Or just a cruel, unforgiving storm? Or perhaps you have a theory of your own? Share your thoughts. I read all the comments. Thank you for watching. And we'll see you in the next video, where we tackle another great mystery waiting to be solved.